On Thursday, we went through and broke down all of the final remaining fixtures for the top 6 teams in League 2, and we had a little bit of a discussion who had the easiest, who had the hardest running, and decided basically who was going to be promoted off of that. In today's video, it's a bit more doom and gloom. We're doing the opposite. We're going to the bottom of the table. I believe there's 4 teams still in a relegation battle. Now Harrogate have got to that magical 40 points mark. I can't see them losing 11 points on Morecambe with just 10 games to go. So I think it will be between the bottom 4 teams. Some people might say that the 2 relegated sides are already confirmed. Now, we're going to discuss it all in today's video. So make sure to drop a like on there for me and subscribe to the channel as well. If you are new, 100 likes as always would be massively appreciated. And don't forget to get your thoughts in down in the comment section down below. Who do you think will be relegated this season from League 2 into that dreaded National League? So we do have this key here to decide how easy and hard the fixtures are. Now, it is just a rough guide. It doesn't really take into consideration injuries or form, how good a team is at home or how good a team is away. It's just the league table broken down to give us a rough idea of who has the easiest and the hardest running. And if you're a Carlisle fan, no spoilers, it's not looking good. We'll start out firstly then with Accrington Stanley. Out of these 4 teams, obviously they do have the best chance of survival. Currently 7 points above the drop zone with a game in hand. I feel like it'll take a real collapse for them to be relegated. But here is their remaining fixtures then. Their game in hand is played on Tuesday at home to Newport. You think that's a decent game for them to pick up some points. Then they've got Gillingham at home. Again, another good opportunity for them to potentially pick up 3 points. Gillingham have been really poor on the road for quite a while. Swindon away, I think, is a very difficult game. They've not lost at home for quite a while under Ian Holloway. Then they've got Bradford at home. That certainly won't be an easy game, but Bradford obviously recently losing to Gillingham, so maybe that could be one where they could pick up a point. Fleetwood at home, again, bit of a local sort of game for them. Will they be up for that? Will Fleetwood already be on the beach by that point, potentially? So they might get something out of that. Bromley away, I think, will be difficult for them to get any points out of that. Tranmere is obviously a big relegation at 6 points for them, and especially with them being at home, I'm sure that's the game they will be targeting 3 points. Salford away, again, maybe they could nick a point. Salford might potentially be on the beach by that point, but now they've had a few players recently returning from injury. I think that will be a very difficult one for them. Then you have Carlisle at home. Again, big relegation, 6 points. Carlisle could already be down though by that point, and Accrington could already be safe, so it'll be interesting to see how that one does pan out. Then they've got Walsall away on the penultimate game of the season. Walsall will definitely be needing the 3 points by that stage, in my opinion. I really do see them falling off between now and the end of the campaign. Obviously, they've been on a terrible run of form. Is it just 2 wins in 11 for them now? So maybe Accrington could go there and upset their promotion party before ending the season with Chesterfield at home. I feel like, again, with their players recently returning from injury, again, similar to Salford, I do see them kicking on between now and the end of the season, finishing as strongly as possible to obviously build a bit of momentum for next season. If you add up the points based on my key, then they do have a 25 total score, which is not too bad, to be fair. With 11 games to go, they do obviously have a game in hand on a lot of the other teams as well. So looking at them fixtures, you'd say Accrington Stanley, with the 7-point gap, with the game in hand, sure they're going to be safe this season. Next up then, we'll have a look at Tranmere Rovers. Obviously, it's been a terrible season for them, for the large part under Nigel Adkins. They recently sacked him. Since then, they haven't lost. They drew against Port Vale. They picked up 5 points at their last possible 9 available. They beat a very good informed Bromley side at the weekend as well now, and they are now 4 points clear of the relegation zone, having played the same amount of games as Morecambe below them. So here is their running between now and the end of the season. Obviously, they don't have any games in hand. The next couple of matches are not very easy, both away from home. Firstly, Bradford away. They've obviously won 10 home games in a row, haven't conceded at home in the last 6 as well. So that'll be a really difficult game for them. If they can pick up anything out of that, it will be an added bonus, but I really don't see them getting anything out of that game in all honesty. Fleetwood away, they've been very inconsistent. Fleetwood normally beat the good teams and then struggle against the poorer teams that are lower down in the table, so maybe Tranmere could get something out of that game. Cheltenham at home, with how poor Cheltenham's away form has been, especially recently, I think that's a game where Tranmere could be at least targeting a point, in my opinion. And then Harrogate away, will Harrogate be already feeling that they're safe by that point? I'm not really too sure, but I think that's maybe a game where Tranmere could be nicking a point. Then they've got Chesterfield at home. Again, that won't be easy with Chesterfield recently having players returning back from injury, but if they want to survive, they've got to be picking up points in their home games. Accrington away, again, a big relegation, 6 points. One of these two teams might already be saved by game week 42, but that I think will certainly turn out to be a 6 points. Then their final 4 games are not very easy. Doncaster at home, they're going be battling really hard for the 3 points. In their automatic promotion chase, I can't see them already having the title wrapped up, for example, with 4 games to go. And even if they did, Grant McCann doesn't strike me as the type of manager to lower his standards whatsoever. So I think that'll be a really tough game for them. Then Barrow away, I do see them maybe getting something out of that game. Obviously, Barrow, they're going to be safe. They've got no chance of going down or getting in the playoffs. So maybe they might be on the beach for that one. But recently, under Andy Wing at home, they have been pretty solid. And obviously, they have picked up their form as well. So I see that one being a pretty tricky game for them. Crew at home, again, that won't be easy. Crew obviously battling for a playoff spot at this moment in time. And I think they will need the 3 points by then. So that won't be easy before ending the season with Newport away there. Form has always been very inconsistent, but they've got firepower at the top end of the pitch. They've got players who can turn it on their day. But to say they've got no games in hand, 24 total score, isn't the end of the world. There's certainly some favourable fixtures in there around that mid sort of block. The next couple and their final 4 don't look appetising, but that block of 4 in between, where they've got a couple of decent home games and a couple of favourable away games, I certainly think that you'd rather have this type of fixture list than what we're going to come on to in a moment with Morecambe and Carlisle. The penultimate team then that we will talk about in today's video is obviously Derek Adams' Morecambe. Now, with 10 games to go, to only be 4 points from safety, I think Derek Adams deserves a lot of credit. And if he keeps Morecambe up, without a doubt, he deserves manager of the season. Now, as a Bradford fan, obviously I don't have the best relationship with Derek Adams. I think he's an absolute clown, in all honesty, but he's done an unbelievable job there to keep them within touching distance still at this stage in the season. They're not even bottom of the table as well, with everything that they've had to deal with. Jason Whittingham is an absolute clown, and I really do hope Morecambe survive, just for their fans, with everything that they've had to go through over the last couple of seasons. But 4 points adrift, 10 games to go. Here is their running then. It isn't awful, in all honesty. I think there's definitely worse on here. It's not great. There's a lot of mid-table teams in there, but there's certainly enough winnable games in here for Morecambe to overcome that 4 point gap. Obviously, they don't play in midweek, but then they have Barrow at home on Saturday. I won't really say it's a local game, it's localish, and I think that's the type of game where Morecambe need to be targeting 3 points in these home games against teams that are between 14th below, really. They've got to be picking up all 3 points. So I really do hope they can get it in that one. Then they have Port Vale away. I don't really see them getting much out of that game, but Port Vale have had a couple of stumbles recently against likes of Harrogate, Fleetwood, so maybe Morecambe could go there and nick a 0-0. Obviously, the week after that, they don't have a game. Swindon at home, that'll be a pretty tricky one. Maybe if they can get a point out of that one. Cheltenham at home, I think they'll be targeting 3 points in that game. Cheltenham may be already on the beach by that point, and obviously their away form hasn't been amazing as of recently. Grimsby away, I don't see them getting anything out of that game, with the Mariners obviously chasing the playoffs at this moment in time. Carlisle at home, that absolutely has to be 3 points. If Morecambe want to survive, they have to beat Carlisle at home. A draw won't be good enough in a game like that, because after they go to Bromley away, that'll be a really tricky one. Could Bromley already be on the beach by that point? Potentially so, but I don't see them getting anything out of that game. Salford at home, could they maybe be on the beach by that point? But again, they've recently had players returning from injury, so I think that'll be pretty tricky. Maybe they could nick a point out of that one. Chesterfield away, again, that'll be tricky. Chesterfield seems like they're going to have a lot to say in this final relegation sort of run. I think they're going to play Accrington, Tranmere and Morecambe. I don't know if they do play Carlisle, but I think that one will be a very tricky game for Morecambe. Maybe they could nick a 0-0 potentially, but I don't see them getting anything out of that game before ending the season with Harrogate at home. That is exactly the type of fixture that they want to be ending with. Harrogate obviously won't have anything to play for by that point. Morecambe, they're at home. That is a game where they really need to be targeting 3 points. Can they overcome that 4 point gap on Tranmere? Obviously, they do have a better goal difference than what's Tranmere's nickname? I've no idea. Tranmere Rovers fans, what is your nickname? That is the biggest mystery of today's video, but I certainly think Morecambe's fixtures are pretty favourable. They've got a lot of mid-table-ish shorter teams and tricky games, but they've got some good winnable home games. Barrow at home, Cheltenham at home, Harrogate at home, Carlisle at home. That's 12 points they've got to be getting. Anything else I think is a bonus. 12 points might just about be enough to keep them up. That would take them to 42 points. If they win 4 of their last 6, I think that's very doable for Morecambe. Will Tranmere pick up? So what Tranmere need to pick up 9 points really then. Can they do that? You'd look at Cheltenham at home. You're looking at I don't know. It's definitely doable. I don't think anything else in there is really given. I'm not saying Morecambe will win all them games, but I certainly think Morecambe have got a more favourable run-in than what Tranmere do. Tranmere's home games aren't particularly amazing, and their away games can be a bit tricky as well. Maybe I'm just wishful thinking. Obviously, Tranmere are a bigger club than Morecambe. Tranmere shouldn't be in the position that they are, but at the end of the day, this is, facts that we're talking about here. Tranmere have got a real opportunity of going down into the National League once again, but I certainly would say between Tranmere and Morecambe, you'd rather have Morecambe's run-in than Tranmere. Let me know if you agree or disagree down below. And make sure to like and subscribe if you've not done already. Let's get on to Carlisle. Now then, Carlisle fans, I know we've had our disagreements over the last couple of seasons, but things are not looking good either. The lowest goal scorers in the entire division at 6 points from safety. They do have a game in hand on Tranmere though. Recently under Mark Hughes, they have been very hard to beat, but I'm sure that sucker punch in the 95th minute against Harrogate was a massive blow for them at the weekend. And not only that, it's Josh Vella who scored an own goal. How you Carlisle fans feel towards Josh Vella is how I felt towards Amari Patrick, Jordan Gibson, Kelvin Miller on that day in January 2022. It might have been the 8th of January. It still haunts me to this day, but as things stand right now, here is the final run-in then for Carlisle. It doesn't look good. Obviously, they've got a game in hand, but they have got the hardest fixtures on paper. They don't play this Tuesday. They've got 3 home games coming up now. They've got to be targeting at least 5 points in them, in my opinion, because they are pretty tricky. Wimbledon at home, I think it'll be a really hard game for them. They've recently got back on track against Notts County after a recent wobble, but Carlisle, they have been pretty solid defensively. Maybe they could get a 0-0 out of that game, because I definitely can't see the lowest scorers in the division scoring against the best defence in the division. So they have to keep a clean sheet in that one. Bromley at home, we've seen Bromley have a couple of slip-ups recently, but I think they've won 5 of their last 7. But Tranmere did show that they are beatable, especially on their own patch as well. So Carlisle, will you be maybe targeting 3 points in that one? MK Dons at home, on paper, is a winnable game based on where MK are in the table, but they have shown obviously they can beat Morecambe. It's not going to be an easy game. MK Dons clearly, with the ability of their squad, are in a pretty false position, but then it's 2 pretty tough away games. Away to Doncaster, I don't see them getting anything out of that. Doncaster have struggled at home against a lot of the top half, but then against a lot of the bottom half, they just smashed them. So I don't see them getting anything out of that game. Chesterfield away, they're a weird side. Obviously, yeah, Chesterfield do play every single one of these teams, so they're definitely going to have a big say between now and the end of the season as to who does go down. Obviously, it depends on injuries and all that sort of stuff and which Chesterfield side does turn up, but I don't see that one being an easy game for the Blues. Newport at home, I think they've got to be targeting 3 points in that game. I know they've had their inconsistencies, Newport, but they've got nothing to play for. If Carlisle want to survive, they absolutely have to beat Newport. Then it's Morecambe away. Again, that has to be 3 points. I know it's an away game and they've not been amazing on the road so far this season. Maybe just 1 or 2 away wins all campaign, but they have to be targeting 3 points. I feel like whoever loses that will 100% go down. Between Carlisle and Morecambe, whoever loses that game will definitely be a National League club next season. A draw for either side maybe will send them both down. Both teams need to win. Obviously, after that, then Carlisle have Port Vale at home. That'll be a really tricky game. Again, we have seen Port Vale stumble a little bit recently. It is at home at Brunton Park, so maybe they could get something out of that game. But again, similar to the Wimbledon game, I think the best they can hope for really is a 0-0 draw. Then Accrington away. Could Accrington be already on the beach by that point? Potentially so. Maybe Carlisle could get something out of that game. They need to go there and win really if they want to stay up. A draw I don't think would be enough, so they have to go there and try and win in their final 2 games of the season, and not particularly favourable. Cheltenham away. Obviously, Cheltenham have been one of the best home teams in the division so far this campaign. I think they've only lost 2 in the last 17 home games, and we've seen recently they've had some really good comebacks there. The likes of 2-0 down in the 90th minute against Walsall, ended up pulling it back to 2-2. They were 2-0 down at home to Barrow, ended up winning that game 3-2. So I don't think that'll be an easy game for Carlisle whatsoever. And Salford at home, they might need the 3 points to make it into the playoffs. They could potentially be on the beach though by that point. So it's not an awful final game of the season, but you'd certainly rather be in Morecambe's position. On paper, they've probably got the hardest final game of the season. Maybe Accrington, but it's not looking good for Carlisle. They've got 6 points from safety, the hardest run-in. I think things are looking bleak for them. Now, don't get me wrong, I absolutely would love Morecambe to stay up, but if I was a betting man, if I was to put money on the line, I think the relegation is already done. I think it will be Carlisle and Morecambe. Now, Carlisle for me is a dead cert. I definitely see them going down at 6 points from safety. Can't score a goal for the life of them, and they've got on paper the hardest running. I do not see Carlisle staying up whatsoever. It's been a real shame to see what has happened over at Carlisle over the last couple of seasons. The owners clearly, they've got the money, but they don't really know what they're doing with it. Their recruitment has been awful. Some of the injury-prone long-term contracts. This squad that they've got is absolutely awful, and they're all here for the next 3 or 4 seasons. Absolutely terrible what's gone on there at that club. That club and their fans deserve so much better, and once you get into the National League, it is very hard to get out of, but they've got the money. Can they maybe do a Wrexham, a Stockport, a Notts County, and eventually work their way out of it? But we saw what York City spent 350 grand in the National League this season. There is a lot of money in that division. Now, Morecambe, I would love them to survive. I certainly think it's possible looking at their fixtures and at Tranmere. I certainly think that final spot is between Tranmere and Morecambe. I feel like Accrington will definitely survive. Carlisle are definitely going down, and then it's now just between Tranmere and Morecambe. Can they overcome a 4-point gap? Definitely so, but they've got a lot of injuries at the moment. They're really struggling for player availability. They've got the easiest running on paper, but like I said, if I was a betting man, I would say Carlisle and Morecambe will be in the National League at next season. But even if Tranmere survive, surely their fans are not going to pitch invade, because goodness me, it's been a horrendous season for them. Thankfully for their sake, they finally got Nigel Adkins out. Hopefully the Palioses sell up very soon as well. Carlisle fans, let me know down below, how are you now feeling about your ownership? Because obviously, since they've come in, it is back-to-back relegations. You can't surely make it 3 on the bounce and do a Scunthorpe, because that would be absolutely terrible if Carlisle are in the National League North in a year's time. Goodness me. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there then for today's video. If you have enjoyed, don't forget to drop a like on there for me and subscribe to the channel as well if you are new. Can we try and hit 100 likes? As I said at the start of today's video, that would be massively appreciated. And don't forget to get your thoughts in down in the comment section down below. Who do you think will survive? Who do you think will be relegated? And if you were supporting one of these 4 teams, which running would you rather have? Thank you all so much for watching. Have a good rest of your day, and I'll see you very soon for another one.